Now I open the package.json file, configure IP ACLs to mitigate attacks. There is a topology. Access to router 1, router 2, and router 3 should only be permitted from PCC. PCC is a management station. PCC also used for connectivity testing to the server. This server provides DNS, SMTP, FTP, and HTTPS services. Standard operating procedure is to apply ACLs on each router to mitigate common threats based on source and destination IP address. In this activity, we will create ACLs on each router, router 1 and router 3 to achieve this goal. And then we will verify ACL functionality from internal and external hosts. Part 1. Verify basic network connectivity. Step 1. From the server A, we verify connectivity to the PCC and router 2. It's successful. And from PCA or server A, we SSH or we establish an SSH section to the router 2 loopback 0 interface. On the router 2, we check for the loopback 0 interface IP address. There's the loopback 0 interface and the IP address. And now we establish an SSH section from the server to the loopback interface of router 2. Now I can establish successfully an SSH section to router 2 from the server. Now we exit from the SSH connection. Step 2. From PCC, we verify connectivity to the server A and router 2. Firstly, on PCC, I ping to the server. It's successful. Now, from PCC, I establish an SSH section to router 2. As you can see, I can establish a connection using SSH to router 2. Now I test the HTTPS from the PCC to the server because the server is a web server. As you can see, I can browse for website on the server A. Part 2. Secure access to routers. Step 1. Configure ACL number 10 to block all remote access to the routers except from the PCC. On router 1, we create an access list number 10 and permit only the IP address of PCC. On router 2, we will do the same way. And on router 3, Step 2. Apply ACL number 10 to ingress traffic on the VTY lines. Now we verify our configuration. There is the access list. And we apply it on the VTY line. Step 3. Verify exclusive access from management station PCC. On PCC, I establish an SSH section to router 2 on the loop by 0 interface. It should be successful. As you can see, I can establish successfully section SSH section to router 2. Now I test the SSH connection from the server to the router 2 on the loop byte 0 interface. As you can see, the connection refused by the remote host because router 2 only accept the connection from the PCC, the same as router 1 and router 3. Part 3. Create a number IP ACL 120 on router 1. We have to create an IP ACL number 120 with the following rules. Permit any outside host to access DNS, SMTP, and FTP services on the server. Deny any outside host access to HTTPS services on the server. Permit PCC to access router 1 via SSH. Step 1. We verify that the PCC can access the server via HTTPS using the web browser. Now we open the server on the Services tab. We click on the HTTP and we turn off the HTTP service and turn on HTTPS service. And now on PCC, I open the web browser and enter the IP address of the server. With the HTTP service, so it's return request timeout. Now I enter HTTPS. You can see PCC can use HTTPS to browse the website on the server. Step 2. We configure ACL 120 to specifically permit and deny the specified traffic. On router 1, we create an access list 120 and permit the DNS service because DNS is UDP, so the protocol is UDP from any source to this server. Equal, you can see the domain name service equal domain. The second rule, we permit SMTP. Because SMTP use TCP from any source to this server equal SMTP. And we permit FTP. FTP use TCP, and now we change to FTP. And we deny any connection using HTTPS to this server. Deny because HTTPS use TCP, so we enter TCP from any source address host equal 443 is the port number of HTTPS. And now we permit the PCC can establish an SSH connection to router 1. Permit SSH UTCP, so we have the TCP with host from PCC. So we enter the keyword host, PCC IP address to the server host. To the router 1. The IP address of router 1. Let me check the IP address of router 1. This one. Equal the port number of SSH protocol is 22. And now we can show our access list by using to show the first rule. It permit DNS. The second rule permit SMTP. The third rule permit FTP. The fourth rule is to deny any host to connect using HTTPS to the server. And the fifth rule is to permit the PCC to establish SSH connection to router 1. And this standard IP address access list 10 number 10 we apply for the VTY lines on router 1. And step 3, apply this access list to interface. So which interface can we apply? As you can see, because this is a standard access list, so we should apply to as close to the source. So we should apply it to the S0/0/0 of router 1. Interface IP group 120 and with the inbound direction. Now we can verify the extended access list functionality on PCC before we can browse for the website using HTTPS. Now I open the web browser again and enter HTTPS and the IP address of the server. As you can see, from PCC we cannot browse for the website using HTTPS to the server because the access list on router 1 block. Part 4. Modify an existing ACL on router 1, which will permit ICMP eCall replies and destination unreachable messages from the outside network. Deny all other incoming ICMP packets. Step 1. Verify that Server A cannot successfully ping the loopback interface on router 2. On the server A, I ping to the loopback interface of router 2. The question is why the server cannot ping to the loopback interface of router 2. The answer is the ping packet from the server A can reach to router 2, but when the reply goes to router 1, so on this interface it is blocked because of the access list that previously configured. So now we will modify the access list to allow ICMP eCall replies and destination unreachable messages. We permit ICMP from any source address to any destination address equal reply. Oh, sorry, ICMP. And we also permit the unreachable message. And then we deny any ICMP from any source to any destination. And we allow or permit IP from any source to any destination. Permit IP from any source to any destination. Now we can show our configuration. As you can see, our access list 120, we permit ICMP equal reply, permit ICMP unreachable, but deny any ICMP message from any source to any destination, and permit IP from any source to any destination. And now we verify that the server A can now ping to the loopback 0 interface of router 2. We ping it again. As you can see, because we permit the ICMP equal reply, so the server can ping to router 2. Part 5. Create a number IP ACL 110 on router 3 to deny all outbound packets with source address outside the range of internal IP addresses on router 3. Step 1. Configure ACL 110 to permit only traffic from the inside network. The internal IP address is with the wildcard mask to any destination. Step 2. Apply the ACL to interface gigabit 0/1. With the inbound direction, and we can show running config. This is a gigabit Ethernet 0/1, and we apply the access list with inbound direction, and we check for the access list. This one. Part 6. Create a numbered IP ACL 100 on router 3. On router 3, we will block all packets containing the source IP address from the following pool of addresses: any RFC 1918 private addresses, 127.0.0.0/8, and any IP multicast address. Because PCC is being used for remote administration, permit SSH traffic from the 10.0.0.0/8 network to return to the host PCC. Step 1. Configure ACL number 100 to block all specified traffic from the outside network. Firstly, we permit SSH from the 10.0.0/8 network to return to PCC. Permit TCP from this network with the wildcard mask 0.255 equal 22 host and the IP address of the PCC. And now we block or deny IP from this network to any destination, because This network is a private address network. And then we deny IP the class B private address. And this is the class C private address. And we deny one, two, seven. The loopback network address, and we deny the multicast IP address. And permit IP from any source to any destination. Oh, sorry, number 100. Now we can show the rules of our asset list. Do show asset list. The asset list 100 we permit from this network to the PCC SSH protocol. We deny the private IP address following the IFC 1918. The loopback to deny the loopback IP address range and deny multicast network, and then we permit any IP from any source to any destination. Step 2. Apply the ACL to interface serial 0/0/1 because on router 3 we should apply the asset list to the inbound direction on this interface. Step 3. Confirm that the specified traffic entering interface serial 0/0/1 is handled correctly. Firstly, from the PCC, we ping the server it returned request timeout because the ICMP echo replies are blocked by the ACL since they are sourced from this network. And this network is a class B private network, so router 3 will block it. And now we establish an SSH section to router 2 from this PC. Connection timeout, remote host not responding because we accessed to this address, but on the ACLs we have only the rule to allow the network 10.0.0.0/8 to return the packet of SSH protocol to PCC. So we change the IP address of the loopback 0 interface of router 2 by the IP address of this interface. And enter the password. As you can see, I can establish an SSH connection from this PC to router 2, but using the IP address on the 10.0.0.0 network, not this network